Got it. Okay, so just doing a mic check. Hope we can all hear me.
We sure can.
Yeah.
I can.
Okay, awesome. I want to be sure I actually started it on YouTube before. I think I'm back. Sorry, Paul, I had like a poor network connection. But just doing a mic check again. Can we all hear me? Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Cool, great. So yeah, welcome everyone. Welcome to day 2 of this awesome session, which is actually targeted at harnessing the potential of technical writing. Yesterday we started up the journey of technical writing, but before I proceed, I always seem to forget to do this. Housekeeping, bit of housekeeping. I know most of you are tired of hearing me do the housekeeping, but we have to. Just like yesterday, today we will be having the second day 2 of the session of the event, and same rules apply. Maintain the friendly space policy, very, very important. For those who are just joining us today, what the friendly space policy simply means is just treat everyone as you would want to be treated. Be nice to everyone. Just be nice. In your comments, in your response, just be nice. If you have any question, do not be shy. Just ask your questions. To ask questions, for those joining us from the YouTube channel, you can just drop your question on the comment section and we'll read it out and I'll try to answer the question. For those joining us from Zoom, if you want to ask your question, you can use the chat. If you don't want to use the chat, you can also just raise your hand, use the raise hand icon, and we'll allow you have the floor. But please, once we allow you have the floor and you mute yourself to talk, immediately you finish asking your question or your comments, please mute yourself back so that we can respond. The essence of doing this is so that we'll have a very sane session without having any rowdiness. I haven't said all this. I don't know if there's any other housekeeping I'm forgetting. Okay, yes. Also, data reimbursements. Like I said yesterday, there will be data reimbursements for this event. So please, the data reimbursements, whether you're joining from YouTube, whether you're watching us from Zoom, regardless of where you're watching us from, do not be, as long as you're live with us here, where there's a data reimbursement provision for you. All you need to do for that data reimbursement, when you will be filling up the data reimbursement form, you would see likely 2 questions. It could be more, but likely 2 questions. Now, the questions you will see there, for you to be able to qualify for that data reimbursement, you have to answer those 2 questions correctly. So if you answer one wrongly, you still don't get it. So you have to answer the 2 questions correctly. And then also, Yeah, if you're worried about the questions, as long as you attend today's event and yesterday's event, you should be able to answer the questions. They're very super easy questions. You'll be able to answer them. Also, if you missed yesterday's session, please, you can also go to our YouTube channel and watch that. Just type Wiki Mentor Africa on YouTube and you will see our channel. Just go there, you will see the previous events we did yesterday. We also shared the link on the Telegram group. So if you're not on the Telegram group, I will highly encourage you to join the Telegram group. The link will also be shared here today. So yeah, having said this, like I said, summary of what I've said in terms of housekeeping is friendly space policy, very important. And that applies to even on the Telegram group, it also applies. So maintain the friendly space policy. Secondly, keep your mics muted. If you have any question, those on Zoom, you can just raise your hand. Use the raise hand icon and we'll let you have the floor. Immediately you finish asking your question, turn it off so we can respond. For those on YouTube, just ask your question on the comment section. And yeah, there is data reimbursement. If you miss yesterday's session, just go back to YouTube, watch it, and answer the questions when you see it on the data reimbursement. For the data reimbursement, I'll talk more about it at the end of today's event. Today's event is also scheduled, is also divided into two. We'll have a continuation of yesterday's session, and then at the end, we'll now look at what next for us in terms of the next program and what we have for you as Wiki Mentor Africa. Having said this, I also want to say thank you again to Dan. Dan is our mentor of this for this session, our mentor for this month. I want to say thank you, Dan. And Dan started off with yesterday telling us what technical writing is. It was so engaging. I mean, people were asking questions like, what's the difference between copyright and technical writing? What's the difference between documentation and technical writing? And lots of questions. So if you missed that, please just go back to the YouTube channel and watch that to catch up. And so yes, today, Dan, hi Dan, are you there? So today, Dan will be continuing the section. So Dan, I was wondering, do you want to start off? Yesterday we said we're going to start off with questions. Those who have questions first. Do we still want to maintain that, or do you have something else planned?
Sure. No, I thought I took some questions from last time and thought I would give slightly longer answers just for the first couple minutes. And then I thought we could open it up to new questions, if that's okay with you.
Awesome. That's cool. All right. Let me let you have the floor.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Dan Schick. Welcome all back who were there yesterday, and welcome for the first time, those people who are here for the first time. My name is Dan Schick, and I'm a technical writer. I worked for Wikimedia Germany. I've been there for about 3 years, from California originally, but I live here in Berlin. And I love my job. I feel really lucky to have my job. And so I'm happy to share whatever I can with my job, about my job to you, for those of you who are interested. Last time, I laid out some of my thoughts about what's important, the important skills to have about as a technical writer. And then there were a bunch of questions, which I was really grateful for. Before today's session, I thought I would go back to a couple of those questions and answer them in more detail. One person yesterday asked about the tools that we use in technical writing. And basically what I said yesterday was I use the wiki, I use MediaWiki, but I just wanted to touch on there's all sorts of different tools you might use. It depends on who you're writing for and what you're writing, if you're writing something internally. But, you might use a text editor like Sublime Text. You might use the text editor that you use if you're a programmer. If you're a coder, you might use that same editor that you use to write code to also write documentation. Or you might use a word processor like LibreOffice. That's my personal favorite, or Microsoft Word, something like that. And you might also choose to use formatting languages or markup languages like Markdown, also my personal favorite, or restructured text, or even LaTeX if you're going to do publishing or something like that. But regardless of that, you're probably going to end up publishing the stuff that you write on a wiki or some other web page so that the people who are your audience can see it. And really, when it comes down to it, the tools are secondary. I mean, it's important to know the tools you want to use and to learn them well. But at the end of the day, what counts is being able to express yourself and, in the written word. And as Benedict helpfully pointed out yesterday, it does not have to be in English, of course. Your audience will probably speak multiple languages. You may share a language, or hopefully you share at least one language in common with them, might not be English. So I encourage everyone to, expand their definition of all this stuff way beyond English, because of course, everyone writes in all languages. And I'll show some examples of that a little bit later. So that's the first question I brought in from yesterday. Second one, somebody asked, good evening, sir. Somebody asked yesterday, is coding technical writing? And I said no, and I stand by that. But I did want to point out that when people code, they typically also are asked to document their code, or to comment their code. And that means, when you write code, when you write in a programming language, you're also, it's very useful for you to write little notes, little comments that explain what you're trying to do. What does this function do? What does this passage, what does this clause do? So that if some other person comes along and looks at your code and wants to use it, they don't have to puzzle over it and try to figure out just based on the code alone what it does. Sometimes that's really hard. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's hard. So the best kind of code that I know of is code that also has sort of mini technical writing embedded in it in the form of comments or documentation. So, and then finally, of course, as I also mentioned yesterday, every code repository, every GitHub repository, the best kinds have a really helpful README file, and that is also documentation. So those were the questions I brought in from yesterday, or most of them. And what I wanted to show you now, well, actually, I'll just open up for questions now, and then I'll show you this little cluster of pages later. So now's a good time, everybody. If you have more questions, you can ask them in the chat. You can raise your hand to speak, as Benedict pointed out, or if you're listening on YouTube, watching on YouTube, Benedict will be kind enough to pass your question along to me. Yeah, and it's just anything you want to know about technical writing, about documentation, kind of work that I do. Maybe I haven't said enough stuff to raise questions in your mind, which is fine. If that's true, I can move on to showing you some actual documentation. Because one of the questions I got yesterday was, what does documentation look like? And I can definitely show you that. But I think I'll wait just a minute more here to see if anybody has any questions, in case maybe someone on YouTube is typing away, hoping to get their question answered about technical writing.
So far, no question on YouTube. Okay. So you can carry on.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you. So yeah, perhaps the most interesting question yesterday, or the one that made me think the most, was what does technical writing look like? What does documentation look like? And I work at Wikimedia, so I hope it's no surprise that I'm about to show you a wiki page. I'll share my screen. There we go. Hope everybody can see that okay. Let me just grab the chat. Great, thank you very much.
Maybe try zooming it a little.
Okay,
so
we'll do.
Those on their mobile can see as well.
I'm just making sure that I can see the chat as well. How's that? Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Great. All right, let me just get my windows in order here so I can actually see what I'm doing. So as I mentioned yesterday, one of the things that I work on is documentation for Wikibase. For those of you who don't know what Wikibase is, very briefly, it's an extension to MediaWiki that allows you to store structured data, linked open data. And I can go into more detail at a future date. It's kind of boring if you're not into the whole thing. It can sound boring. I think it's very interesting. But anyway, it doesn't matter what it's about, because this is a pretty good example of the work that I do. And you'll see this page is called Wikibase. It's a regular old wiki page. As you can see, MediaWiki.org has upgraded to 1.38, which is really great for me to see. And then here, as we scroll down, we have on top, we have a brief definition of what Wikibase is. As I mentioned, linked open data. And then you have these tabs. And this is just my own sort of primitive web design to present a whole bunch of different documents, bunch of different pieces of writing about different aspects of Wikibase. So there's two ways you can use it. There's a cloud service, and you can install it on your own machine. That's what those are about. And then there's some quick start. There's an FAQ, the contact page. And then when you look at this one, you'll see all sorts of interesting stuff. You'll see importing data, maintaining Wikibase, extending Wikibase. And so if you're a Wikibase user and you want to know how that stuff works, you would come here and you'd be like, oh, just what I wanted to know. I need to know how to extend Wikibase because I want to install an extension. So then you might click on this, or actually a better one to look at here is importing data, because that's the first question people ask about Wikidata is, how do I get data into it? I mean, of course you could type it in, but sometimes we're talking about museums that have millions and millions of records. So if you're a museum, pretend you're a museum for a moment, you might find this page very interesting because it explains how to get data into Wikibase. So I wrote this, and then it's pretty simple. It's just a quick little introductory paragraph, and then a little section for each different tool that exists for importing data into Wikibase. We discussed quick statements very, very briefly yesterday. I know that one or more of you is familiar with quick statements. And here's a link to some helpful documentation about quick statements. And so you'll see we've got Wikibase import, we got Wikibase integrator, open refine, all stuff that is useful to somebody who uses Wikibase on a regular basis. Excuse me, sorry, getting over a cold. And so that's a very simple documentation page. And so how the question, one of the questions that was that came along with what does documentation look like is, how do you write it? How do you go about writing it? And I mean, it was pretty simple, or really straightforward. I knew that I wanted to just write a little introduction and then basically have a list of all the existing tools. But when I started this, I didn't know any of these tools. So I had to ask my coworkers, what tools exist. So they told me that there was this thing called quick statements, and they told me there was another thing called Wikibase import. So far, I just had a list of 2 or 3 tools with no descriptions and Wikibase integrator. And so then I went and did some research, and I tried to figure out what the heck this quick statements thing is, and how to use it. And when I wrote this, I mean, this is not exactly detailed documentation, but I think that these are very useful to for somebody who knows about Wikibase, about the general topic, but they don't know about quick statements. And this is a nice little introduction to how to use this tool. And I just wrote one of them for each of these, and it was just a matter of researching each one and making sure that this text was simple and readable, but that it expressed the information that people need to know. You'll also note that I embedded it with I use a lot of links, because there's only so much you can do in a paragraph. So I'm a big fan of just peppering the text with links like this. So this tells you if you don't even know what an extension is, that's fine. Or if you need more information about the Wikibase data model, you can get that from there. So that sort of thing. And then before I go away from this page, I would like, someone is saying they can't hear me. Can everyone else hear me? Can we do a little mic check?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Great, just making
what I would recommend to him is maybe try going straight to YouTube. That's easier. That's the easiest recommendation I can give.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everyone could hear me. Oh, great, and you shared the link. Wonderful. So the last thing I wanted to say about this page that I'm scrolling up and down on is that some of this information I didn't write. I didn't write the native MediaWiki export and import, and I didn't write the raise Wikibase part. That's because this is a wiki, and it's open to everyone. And there are some people in the Wikibase community who very kindly added a couple of new tools in there, which I thought was great. I made sure to, because I sort of regard this as kind of my page to take care of, I made sure that the language made sense and that it was pretty clear. But by and large, it's just great when the community adds more information to a wiki page. I welcome that in every way. If you know something about Wikibase, yes, correct. That is correct. This page contains, documentation. I would say that it contains a brief mention of all the tools that can be used to import data to Wikibase, and then each one has a link to the tool. And then, as you can see, some of these have links to more information. So let's look at OpenRefine for a second. You can go straight to OpenRefine here to learn about it. And then you can, that's sort of, actually, I think that's the Wikidata page, but whatever. They have their own page, which actually I should be linking to here, but then they've got this, they've got the documentation here about reconciliation and import functionality. And that is, when you're using OpenRefine, it's a very powerful tool. That's what you want to learn about. You want to learn about the difference between those two things, what's reconciliation, what's import, and then that's where the documentation lies. Yeah, that's the question I'm trying to answer. I would say that this is not a one page that has all the documentation that there is, but instead it's kind of like an overview of all the tools. And then in each description of the tools, I try to link to the documentation. Now, I didn't write OpenRefine, and it's not a tool that we at Wikimedia, support because we didn't write it. But there's people who did write it, and so it's their own tool. It was originally developed by Google, and now they are their own group, and it's a super amazing tool. And they have the most amazing documentation. Let's take a quick look. Yeah, this is OpenRefine's documentation. And, you can look on the left sidebar, you can see all this stuff, and this is stuff that they wrote. And I can't do better than that. This is the people that developed the tool, developed the interface with Wikibase. We didn't even develop the part with Wikibase. That was all them. And, kudos to them for doing that. So that's the story there. So it does not contain, this page does not contain all the documentation, but from here, you should be able to get to all the documentation that exists. Some of it's mine, most of it's other people's. So that is what I would call a pretty simple documentation page, because it's sort of this overview. And so any questions on that before I move on to something a little bit different? I'm happy to answer that, any questions that arise. Excuse me, but so this is a simple page. Let's look at a more complicated page. I'm going to grab a link here from my notes. Come on, Zoom. Let me paste it. There we go. So now, this is the advanced configuration page about Wikibase, and it has a whole bunch of stuff on it. It has even in the introduction, it's just peppered with links. This page is for people who have installed Wikibase and they have it running, and they might need to do some special tweaks to the configuration, to the way it runs, that not everybody needs. Special things like changing the order in which statements appear on a page, or changing all sorts of different things. It's hard to come up with examples that wouldn't take 20 minutes to explain. Some of which I don't even personally understand all the way. That's not my job. My job is just to make sure that the information that people need is on this page. So, and you can see it's just long and complicated. And I'd say I wrote about half of this page. Half of this page was written by people that are developers of Wikibase, people who are experts, power users, and then I kind of rolled up all that information and put it into this page. And so on this page, you can learn about all sorts of crazy stuff that you could do with Wikibase that's different from normal stuff, the normal way you would use it. And then there's also a section on maintenance scripts. So sometimes you have to run these scripts to keep the Wikibase stuff in order. And it, gives you complicated stuff, or gives you comprehensive stuff like how to run a PHP script, and and then what the dispatch changes script does. Of course, and you can see this is one of those things I was talking about yesterday, when documents get old. And so when version 1.38 came out, excuse me, I got a note from the developers that said that the dispatch changes.php script is deprecated. We don't need it anymore. The functionality has been subsumed into some other part of Wikibase. So rather than completely tossing out this piece of the documentation, I just put a note here, because not everybody runs 1.38. Some people are still on 1.37 or even earlier, and maybe they don't care. They don't care to upgrade, which is fine. That's certainly their right. At some point, when things get pretty old, they're on their own for supporting it. But yeah, and so this is a good example of what happens when documents get old, or pieces of documents get old. You note that they're out of date and you move on. So this is there's all sorts more stuff here. I don't know if this is terribly interesting, but I just wanted to show this as an example of a very complicated documentation page that has multiple authors. But I either wrote this stuff or I edited it into a consistent format, so that if you're a Wikibase person and you need the information here, maybe you found it by a search or whatever, you're going to look through this table of contents over here and you're going to be like, oh yeah, I just want to use it as a repository. How do I define links for external identifiers? There it is. And you're going to find what you need, hopefully, and that's how good documentation works. if I'm allowed to praise my own work. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Again, let me please open the floor to questions. I have a couple more things I could talk about, but I'd much rather be answering your questions if you have any. No pressure.
Remember, if you have any question, just click on the raise hand for those who are on Zoom. For those on YouTube, you can always just drop a comment, put your question on the comment section, and we'll read it out loud. My question, actually, as you did mention this, is in terms of collaborative writing. Is it possible to, will you call it a documentation if you, just like you have here, if you end up having a documentation that is not written by just you? So
absolutely, yes.
Can we have like 2 or 3 or more persons contribute in one documentation document?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, even the page I showed you before with the import tools, that was a document we collaborated on. It's absolutely documentation. In fact, excuse me, sorry, I would say that that most documentation doesn't have a single author. I'd say that most documentation has multiple authors in one way or another, and that's great. The more eyes that are on the document, and the more different people that can bring different expertise to that document, the better. So yeah, that is absolutely documentation. Documentation isn't just the work of one person at all. It's definitely and very often a collaboration. And this is we all are familiar with MediaWiki. It's my favorite wiki. I don't know about you, but it's such a great collaboration tool. There's so many tools that we've gotten over the years to make it easy. We have the history, just the different editors and stuff. It's just wonderful. Here's a question. As far as I summarize a piece of information, is it also considered technical writing? Well, I mean, theoretically, yes. If you have a piece of information and you summarize it, why are you summarizing it? I would imagine that you're summarizing it because you're trying to make it understandable to someone else. So maybe this is more extreme than you meant, but I'm just going to go on my own little imagination tour right now. Let's say that you have a white paper, like a very technical white paper on a topic, and you understand it because you're deep in or maybe you wrote it, but you want to make it accessible to people who are not, well read on the topic, on maybe a topic that most people don't know much about. So if you summarize that, like if you write the abstract for that white paper or whatever, I would call that a form of technical writing. I don't know I would say that the labels of documentation and technical writing are less important. I mean, this is just writing. When my job isn't really technical writing. I mean, sure it is, but what my job really is just expressing ideas so other people can understand them. And so you can call that documentation, you can call that technical writing, you can call that summarization. The label isn't as much important as what you're doing, which is, bridging the gap between a small group of people who might be the only people who understand a topic and a larger group of people who want to understand that topic. So yeah, that's I hope that answers your question. What are the common technical writing problems? That's a great question. That is a great question. I'll try to answer that short. I would say perhaps the biggest one is one that I touched on yesterday, which is getting time, scheduling time with subject matter experts, people who are the ones that, so if you, the technical writer, if I, the technical writer, am not super familiar with a topic, and believe me, I'm not familiar with all the topics that I write about. That's not my job. My job is to make it clear. So what I do is I sit down when I can with people who know the topic, what I call subject matter experts. And subject matter experts are frequently very busy. So it is often very difficult to schedule time with them. And maybe even if you can schedule time, it might not be enough time. That's one problem. Another problem is this isn't as big of a problem, but it's the next one that popped into my head. This is perhaps the flip side of what we talked about before, when the question was when the question that Benedict asked, is it still documentation? Is it still technical writing when multiple people work on it? Absolutely, it is. But I would say that one problem you might run into is if you have sort of too many cooks in the kitchen. When you have too many people working on it, and there's not one person who makes sort of the final decisions, it can lead to a document either taking too long to write, or the quality goes down because people can't really agree, and people have to compromise on maybe an imperfect solution. I'd say the time consuming thing takes the most would be the biggest problem there. Too many cooks, too many people collaborating with different ideas of how it should go. What other common technical writing problems are there? I mean, there's problems using your tools. When your tool breaks, I use a text editor for most of the time, and then I'll use the wiki to put the stuff that I write, to publish it. But sometimes the wiki is down, or sometimes an extension that I'm used to using on one wiki isn't on another wiki, and then I have to figure out how to make things appear the same way. Templates are. I just wish that every wiki had every template, because I get used to using a template on MediaWiki, and then when I go to another one, it's not there. So getting your tools to work is another big one, and I'm sure you can imagine that is a very big. Lots of things can go wrong. Those are the first three that popped into my head. I could go on and on and on, but I only have so much time. Thanks for that question. That's great. That was a really good one. Any other questions? I'll just briefly touch on one other thing. Excuse me. And that is, there we go, back to the importing. Yesterday, Benedict asked me, is translating a wiki page or a documentation, is that technical writing? And I thought it would be a good opportunity to introduce you to the translation interface in case you've never seen it. So here's the Wikibase front page. As you can see, it has already been translated, at least in part, into all these languages, a whole bunch of languages, Indonesian, German, English, Turkish, Zakia, it's a language from Iraq. That's all. I'm not familiar with absolutely every one of these languages, but as you can see, it's quite a few. And all those translations came from volunteers. So if you saw this page and you speak English and also another language that you don't see here, and you think, I would like to see this page translated into my language, you can do it right now. You just click on translate this page, and you pick the language you want to translate it into. Now, my browser language is English, so the translation interface shows me English as my first choice. But let's just say for fun that I want to translate it into German, which is the only other language I speak. Excuse me. And then you get this this interface. Now, because someone has already done the work of translating it, you see the English on the left and the German on the right. But if there might be an untranslated section, no, there isn't. Okay, well, that's fine. So just imagine, just imagine that this is blank, and then and you translate it into a language of your choice, maybe Igbo, maybe Swahili. I don't know. I was trying to come up with good examples, and you click on the segment that you want to translate, and boom, you're in this sort of mini version of the wiki editor, and you can see the formatting in the original, and then you try to reproduce it here. It's usually like one sentence is in each chunk, and it shows you exactly what you need to know. And then you can translate it into your language, and then when you come back to the main page, which I'm trying to get to by clicking and clicking, you will now see your language appear in this list of languages, which honestly is a beautiful sight. When I see more languages appear on there, I think it's great. And to finish that up, I will just say that there is translation is its own job, that's for sure. Translation isn't technical writing in the formal sense. But anybody who is able to translate technical writing in an effective way is using technical writing skills. And again, I don't want to get it hung up on labels. I don't think it's important, like, am I doing technical writing now? Am I doing it now? More, it's just like, am I able to make this information accessible to others? And I'd say in that sense, translating a document, when you're doing a huge service. I mean, just think of all the people who don't speak any of these languages, but who speak other languages in the world. There are 7,000 languages in the world, a lot more than you see here. Just imagine being able to make this page, or this is not the most interesting page, but another page accessible to all those other people. I find that to be pretty much inspirational when someone goes that length. I think translation is magic, and I hope everybody wants to try this translation interface, because it's a little clunky. It can be a little clunky, as can many things on MediaWiki, but I think it is so important to do that, to get things translated. Here we have another question. Excuse me. Wouldn't it be better to have a collaborator who goes through all the information passed and write out the best understandable one from all of them? Or is there someone who does that? Well, I think that if I had a collaborator and we were both working on a page, I think we would both be doing both of those things. Or we could divide up the labor. Like I could be the one that interviews the subject matter expert, because maybe I'm better with people, or maybe I'm the only one that speaks the subject matter expert's language, or there might be any number of reasons, or just I happen to be there when the subject matter expert was there. And then I could make notes and make an outline of the document. And then, maybe my collaborator would be the one that actually sits down at the keyboard and writes the document. And then maybe I would edit that document once that person wrote it. It's anything's possible. So yes, I mean, I don't have the luxury. I wish I did. I don't have the luxury of having multiple people. It's just me at my job, as far as anyone doing technical writing. So I have to edit my own work. I have to do my own subject matter expert interviews, but I'm not complaining. I love my job. It's great. But yes, I have certainly been at companies when I worked in California that had several technical writers, and they would indeed separate the work. Brief anecdote before I give the mic back. I was told I had 40 minutes, and I'm coming up on my time. But when I worked in California, I worked at a company that had a whole bunch of old software running on a whole bunch of old servers. So much of it was so old that the people who knew how to run it had quit, years before. So we had to do a lot of detective work and stuff. So the technical writers actually led the charge, and what they did is they had all of us. I was an operations person at the time. They had all of us. They gave us a list of services they wanted to know more about, and they gave us an assignment. They were like, "Go and find out what port it's listening on, what language it's written in, or what have you, all sorts of stuff. And then we came back to the technical writers, furnished them with the information, and then they wrote this amazing manual for the migration, where they helped us discover services that people had forgotten about. And that was a group of 3 people who were just really, really good at their job. So perhaps someday I'll have someone else working with me. Until then, I'm working solo. I don't know if we have time for more questions, but in the interest of finishing up, I just want to give you all one incredibly useful piece of information, which I'm putting in the chat right now. It is the documentation page on MediaWiki.org. That is, it's the page about documentation. And it is so great. It has so much great stuff on it. As you can see, it has also been translated to a bunch of languages. This is a great introduction to writing documentation, or doing technical writing. There's even a definition, as many of you asked, like, what is technical writing? Here we are. This has a formal definition. There's a bunch of sections here. You can find the documentation, you can improve it, you can learn about writing. It's super great. They did such a great job. These are the technical writers at the foundation. I really respect this work a lot, and I hope that it helps you in your journey to being a technical writer. I'm absolutely open to any questions, but that's about all I had to bring you today. So I will, Benedict, if I could hand back over to you, unless there are any questions.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Dan, for that. I don't know, does anyone have any other question pertaining to what technical writing is all about, what everything Dan has said, basically? Any question, feel free to ask. Does anybody have any question on that? Remember, those on YouTube, you can always ask your question on the comment section. Yeah. So there's one word you used yesterday, Dan, when you were describing documentation, and I think I like the word. You said documentation is sort of like a manual, right? Like a menu, sorry. Is it menu or manual? Yeah, manual. You said it's sort of like a manual that explains something. So,
Yep.
so yeah, I think that's my the easy definition I could. If anybody asks me what's documentation now, they'll be like, it's like a menu. It's like a manual that just explains anything. So technical documentation. So is it right if I say like technical documentation is the manual for technical things? Oh, you're muted. Dan, you're muted. I can hear you. Still muted. Oh, I had. Oh, okay. Let me see if. Oh, you're showing me that you're muted. But still, I don't know if it's just me. But yeah, can any other person hear Dan? If you can hear Dan, just use the chat. Let me be sure it's not just me, because it's still showing me you're muted. Ah, okay. So you're muted, Dan. But yeah, I guess I'll ask my follow-up question on the Telegram platform. So thank you so much, Dan. Thank you so much for this. I think okay, yeah. Thank you so much for this. Thank you for this awesome session. Let me see. So we'll be moving on to the next phase of today's event, which is basically for some weird reason, my camera is really poor. Yeah, but then again, the next phase is for us to discuss what next. We have seen what technical writing is, but then again, this is not about you writing it. It's about you knowing about it, knowing, basically having an idea of what technical writing is. So for those who are not familiar with the Wiki Mentor Africa program, I wanted to use this second phase also to throw more light on Wiki Mentor Africa. So Wiki Mentor Africa is is an initiative that is being brought up to basically bring all technical folks, all Africans, any African that is interested in the technical aspect of Wikimedia, the technical space of Wikimedia. So it's basically to bring all of us into the technical space. And the technical space doesn't just imply people who write code. As you can see, documentation writing is also part of the technical thing. I mean, you could write code or write a tool, create a tool, but if you don't have anybody who uses the tool, then your tool is more or less useless. So the best thing you could do, or the best, so it works hand in hand. Like it's one thing to write tool, is another thing to for other people to use it. And one way to have other people use it and understand it is to have that technical writing or documentation about that tool you've written. And that is where the technical writing comes in as well. So wanted to just throw that in. So what we do is basically to bring up mentors like Dan to come on board and talk to us about these awesome topics, just like the technical writing. And at the end of the day, those of you who feel like you want to pursue that path, which is the part of technical writing, you can reach out to Dan. Now you might wonder, how do you reach out to Dan for this? Let me see if I can quickly open up this. So if you're wondering how you can reach out to Dan, there are two ways actually you can do that. One way will be to, just a second. So one way to do that, to reach out to Dan, is to reach out to him via Telegram. If you're not on our Telegram group, let me share the Telegram link here. So I just pasted the Telegram link on the Zoom. For those who are not on the Telegram group, you can reach out to Dan there. Another way you can reach out to Dan is go through our project page, which is this, the Wiki Mentor Africa project page. So I will share my screen just to demonstrate what you can do to reach out to Dan. So share my screen. Yep. So this is the Wiki Mentor Africa page. So once you come in here, of course, if you've not been to this page before, you want to know what we're all about, you can find out here. Just go to, if you want to reach out to Dan, just go to mentors list. So once you get to mentors list, scroll down, you will find all our mentors here so far. And then you see Dan here. This is Dan's. So basically all you need to do to reach out to Dan is click on the talk page here. Yeah. So if you click on the talk page here, this should take you to, yeah, ideally it should take you to Dan's user page, I think. Let me be sure. Oh yeah. Okay, so it should bring you here. You should be able to start off the conversation. So just click on start conversation, enter subject and what have you, and then write that you need. So the subject should be just basically just say Wiki Mentor Africa request for mentorship. Something like this. And then you could just say your name. You could write whatever you want to write here just to ask him for mentorship. If you don't know what to write here, we have a clue back on our page. Let me just go back. Something you can easily use. So you could just copy this and use this. So you could just go here, copy this. So I could just copy, yep, this like this. So what this is actually just said, let me just read it here so you just know. It just says, hello, it pings Dan, and then it says, I would like to be mentored by you. I hope you will accept me to be your mentee. Very easy. And then it signs off the wiki text sign signature. You just do that. So very easy way to ask for mentorship. But before you do this, ensure you already have a, you already logged in. So I'm not logged in here. So you could see, so ensure you already logged in. So just click on login. If you don't have an account, create an account with either Wikidata or any of the wikis. That is if you're using this method. Like I said, the other method would be to go through the Telegram. Also, Dan, I don't know if you would like to be reached out via your email as well. Is this something you want folks to reach you in terms of those requesting for mentorship?
Sure, email is also fine. I'll
Oh,
put it
okay.
in the chat right now.
Oh, awesome.
Although
Thank you
sorry about
so
before, my computer just completely froze and I was trapped.
I figured. Yeah, thank you so much. So what is there any other way you would prefer someone to reach you? Anyone seeking for mentorship?
I think that about covers it. Instant messaging, email, or the wiki.
Thank you so much. So that is how to reach Dan for mentorship. If you need to be mentored on technical writing, yeah, that's about that. Also, in terms of what we have next for you, remember our last event we did like a Wiki Mentor Africa Know You All. Basically, what that session was about to just do like a survey of what you as an individual would like to learn and what your expectations are. So we're still going through that. And one thing I could tell you is that we are restructuring, we're going to be restructuring the entire Wiki Mentor Africa program. We're restructuring it in such a way that we might not have the same system where we just have the likes of Dan just attached to you. So we're looking at the possibility of having an onboarding process first. So what that onboarding process might entail will be that it's going to be where we'll go through like a course like sessions where we'll go through series of sessions for everyone to be on board, understand the same things in terms of like what open source is, what the Wikimedia platform generally is, because I understand some folks don't even know what the Wikimedia platform is. So you might want to understand that. So everybody will be on the same page. So once we get that done, then we can now start inviting the likes of Dan and others to also come in and mentor people who are interested in the different fields. I hope I hope we are all pumped for that. That's how we're looking at going forward with it. But more communication will be done on that aspect in terms of the restructuring of the program itself. I don't know if anybody have any question as relating to anything that I have said in terms of technical writing or the Wiki Mentor Africa program. If there is any question, I think this is the time to ask. We still have lots of time, so feel free to ask your questions. Yeah, I'm also watching the YouTube. YouTube has been quiet. Nobody's asking any question. So like I said, you can always use the comment section to ask your questions and I will do my best to respond. Yeah, I also wanted to throw more light on the data reimbursement thingy. So for those who are just joining this event for the first time, I might not understand what the data reimbursement is all about. So the data reimbursement is the Wiki Mentor Africa team is providing the data reimbursement because we want you to focus more on the learnings of what is happening during these sessions rather than on the money you're going to be spending buying data or internet networks and or paying the internet service and the rest. So what we do is see how we can source for fund and basically help us with the data reimbursement. Thanks to Wikimedia Deutschland, we're able to get this such fund. So we have the partnership with Wikimedia Deutschland, who are the major help to us in terms of making this possible. So I want to shout out to them. Also, in terms of again, like I said, the data reimbursement, please, one thing I want to also point out is that in as much as we're going out of our way to see how to make this whole experience a favorable and insightful one, we also don't want people to abuse the process or to abuse this. I call it privilege because I feel like Wikimedia Deutschland has given us the privilege to learn this, and the Wiki Mentor Africa team has brought this initiative for us to be able to improve ourselves. And so in terms of the data reimbursement, you will be getting a data reimbursement form and this will be shared on the Telegram platform. So if you're not on the Telegram, please go and join the Telegram platform now. Let me see if I can share the link again. Just a second. For those not on the Telegram, go and join the Telegram platform. That is where you will be seeing the data reimbursement form. Like I said, you're likely going to be seeing two questions, and the two questions are going to be coming from what Dan has discussed between today and yesterday. So take your time to fill the question, to fill the form. Do not rush. Take your time to fill the form. Remember, if you fail one of the questions, you will likely not going to get the data reimbursement. So try as much as you can to, if you feel like you didn't get what he said, the good thing is that you can always revisit the previous sessions by going to our YouTube channel and just watch the video there. So I don't know if there's any other question as relating to the data reimbursement. Yeah, there's no preference to those who join Zoom or those who joined YouTube, regardless of where you joined from. As long as you are on the live sessions, you're going to be getting the data reimbursement if you answer the questions correctly, the questions on the data reimbursement form. I'm still waiting for questions. I don't know if there is any question as relating to all what I've said and all what Dan has said.
We're having a good time in the chat.
Yeah, I could see that. It's also important for me to also mention that it's not everyone that will reach out to Dan that Dan will accept to mentor. So please do not feel aggrieved if he feels that he has reached the capacity or he can handle. So just be patient. We'll still have other folks like Dan who will come in and help us in terms of mentorship. So if you're not adopted by Dan, it's still fine. If you are adopted by Dan, I will encourage you to please take it seriously. He's doing this out of his own free will. I must say that we're not paying him to do this. So he's volunteering his time, his energy, his efforts to do this. So you might want to appreciate that by just being serious with it, by showing dedication to learning the technical writing itself and the documentation. So once again, I want to say thank you so much, Dan, for agreeing to do this. Yeah.
My pleasure. Okay, thanks for having me. I'm very grateful to everyone's interest, and yeah, hope to see you out there.
Awesome. I can see you already have people who are on the comment section saying Emmanuel is already saying that he wants to be adopted by you already. Who knows? I want to be adopted by you. So yeah, on the YouTube channel, I don't think there is anything going on there. Nobody's saying anything. Are we there? If you're hearing me on the YouTube, if you're on YouTube and you can hear me, just say yes. So let me be sure that you're following what I'm saying. And anybody that has any other questions, I think we still have like 4 minutes to kill. So yeah, if anybody has any question, please feel free to ask. Awesome. I could see they're saying we're here. Oh, okay. There is a question. Let me allow you. So Dakiab, I think. Sorry, forgive me if I'm not pronouncing your name well. You have the floor. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. Dakiab Moses, your hand is raised up. Do you have a question, comment? You're still muted. So to unmute yourself, all you need to do is to click on the mute, on the mic icon. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I guess that's probably an error. He has wrote down his hand. Okay, so no questions. I think that's pretty it. Let me check sorry, I want to just quickly check the YouTube channel, just be sure everybody's okay there. Yeah, so also on YouTube, we have Sonia who is saying that she wants to be adopted by you, Dan. So who knows? All you need to do is not to say you want to be adopted by Dan over here. Please go to the Telegram so that he can he will know. Yeah, so go to Telegram and or to via our mentors list, just the way I showed you, or you could send him an email as well. Yeah, that's the way he will mentor. He will be able to see you and adopt you. Okay, so I have a question. I guess this question is for me. The data reimbursement form, how can one access it? I am on the Telegram channel and I don't know what's going on there. Okay, cool. The way you access it is the data reimbursement form, it will be shared probably today or tomorrow. you're likely going to see it tomorrow. Let me be honest. You'll see the data reimbursement form tomorrow. Once you see the data reimbursement form, it's a Google form. So all you just need to do is just access. If you click on the link, it's going to open. You just fill in everything that is there, fill in the form. The details are pretty much self-explanatory. I like to believe so. So just fill it in. Then when you fill things like your country, your name, your username, I think, and then you'll see questions. Question 1 and question 2. Question 1 will be likely going to be from the session, yesterday's session. Question 2 will also likely going to be from today's question. So if you miss any of this session, go to YouTube and watch. Just recap. I will advise everyone here to also go to YouTube and recap, so that you don't, and the questions are very, very easy, so they won't be hard. And there are options too. You will see the options attached to the questions. So all you just need to do is, like I said, very easy questions. As long as you attended today's event and yesterday's event, I mean, the questions shouldn't be that difficult. So that's how to access the data reimbursement form. Also on the Telegram, I also wanted to point out something. Feel free to ask your questions there. If you have any question, Dan is there to answer you. Our previous mentors are also there. So whatever question you have relating to any of the sessions that have taken place so far, any of the events that have taken place so far, feel free to ask there. Remember, we also still maintain the friendly space policy there. So do not be afraid. Nobody will, what's the word for it? Nobody will insult you, or nobody will assume your question is stupid. There is no such thing as a stupid question. So just as long as your question is centered around the topic, technical writing, or open refine, or any of the things we've discussed before, then you're good. So please feel free to ask your questions on the Telegram platform as well. And if you know the response, if you know the answer to any of the question that is being asked, feel free to answer the question too. There is no designated person to answer any question. So feel free to answer the question if you know the answer. And if you just want to give a try about, maybe you're not so sure about the answer, you could just mention that, oh, I'm just trying, but I'm not sure this is the answer, but just provide your 2 cents there. So the idea is that the Telegram group also is just the group is a community where we are supposed to discuss such things. So feel free to ask your questions, and yeah, pertaining to Wiki Mentor Africa, pertaining to anything you want to know about, particularly concerning the Wikimedia movement. Okay, I see another question. Will you, where will you post the questions? Oh, the questions will be on the data reimbursement form. So once the data reimbursement form itself, you're going to see the questions there. Remember, if you fail any of the question, you're likely not going to be getting data reimbursement. So try to take your time to answer the questions. They are very easy questions. I can assure you that. As long as you attend the event, you should be able to answer that. Another question here is, would it be considered a technical writing? I guess, Dan, this is for you. Would it be considered a technical writing if I am just correcting and adding more information to someone's work? Oh, Dan has answered it already. Dan said, maybe, I don't know how important the label technical writing is. If you're helping improve a document that makes it easier for someone to understand a technical topic. I guess what Dan is saying here is, let's forget so much about the label technical writing, but concentrate more about making things easier for someone else to use. So which is manual. So the manual is there for you to be able to use a particular, I mean, if you buy a car, you get a manual. If you buy a television, you get a manual. So the manual is there, is the documentation. That is also technical writing, I guess. So is there for you to be able to understand how to use the equipment you got. So so yes, as long as you're explaining something for someone else to be able to understand how to use that, I guess you could call that technical writing. But like I said, let's not put so much emphasis on the word technical writing, but rather on what it is that you're trying to achieve. Okay, there will be no, so this is the last session for this event. I could see a question, someone is asking if there will be a meeting tomorrow. This is the last session for this event. Sorry for those who registered for the event. There was a bit of a mix up in the dates. So it was and in your invite, you see that you got a mail that the event is starting today and tomorrow instead of yesterday and today. So sorry about that. I forgot to mention that yesterday. That was just a bit of a mix-up from the Zoom setup for those who registered for the meeting. Dakiab, I can see your hand is raised up again. Okay, this is Dakiab Atos, Moses. Okay, so feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question. The mic is yours.
Actually, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you really for being a wonderful host and then for being very nice. Yeah, really.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for being a wonderful participant. Thank you for attending to this our call. Thank you for learning. I think it's important to say that, I mean, this session and yesterday's session was awesome because everybody obeyed the rules. Nobody was rowdy. Everybody was nice. I want to say thank you to everyone. And so I want to give the last 2 minutes for question. Anybody that has any question before we end the event? Okay, Dan, I don't know if you want to take a stab at this. Somebody's asking, how do you earn /benefits adding information on Wiki? I don't know what the best answer will be.
I'm not sure exactly what you mean there, but I guess I can cover generally, anyone can sign up for a Wiki account and anyone can edit pages except for the few pages that are protected or whatever, but you should be able to add and edit pages on there. And the benefit, I think if you want to say the word benefit, what you're doing is anything that you write down, someone who needs it explained to them is going to benefit from it. So if there's something that only you understand or that you can make better, you're adding a benefit to the world by explaining it. How about that? That's the best I can do.
Thank you so much. I guess another follow-up question that someone asked, and I will try to take a stab at this. And yeah, if I'm wrong, then you could come in. So the question here is, what is the percentage of clients that go for technical writers? So to answer this, basically every software development company, see it this way, every software development company, every engineering firm that produces a particular product, like I give an example, the television, your manual is a technical document. So see it like who wrote the manual? Those are the technical writers. So who wrote the manual pretty much covers it. So it's almost everywhere in terms of the percentage of clients. It's sort of like asking what is the percentage of engineers. I mean, you could say that. So everyone who produces something that needs people to use that something needs someone who understands it to be able to translate it or write it in such a way that every other person or more people can understand and use it. So in that sense, we could say that almost everyone needs a technical writer. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know if Dan wants to throw more light on that.
I just want to add one thing. I think that's a great answer. I just want to add that some software companies don't have a technical writer. Some software companies just ask their engineers to do the documentation, which sometimes that's okay. But I think it's great when a company decides that it's important enough to give one person or multiple people the job of documenting stuff, because sometimes engineers are really bad at it.
Yeah, so many. I know a lot of engineers who don't like writing. I mean, they just would like to code and write the code. It does the stuff, but in terms of explaining what it does, they don't have the time to do that. Yeah. So that is where the technical writers come in. You understand the code, you understand what is happening there. You can write about it. You remember, you're not writing the code itself. You're just explaining what the code is doing, or you're explaining what is expected at the end of the of that particular tool or whatever. So yeah, answering the question, what you need, or the percentage of persons who need technical writing, I mean, it's pretty much, the percentage is pretty much high. Yeah. Any other question? Okay, building. Oh, okay. So again, I guess we'll have to end this session here. If you have any other question, like I said, you could use the Telegram platform. If you're not on the Telegram, I've shared it a couple of times. Let me also share it on the, I just noticed I've not shared that on the, what's it called? On the YouTube channel as well. Let me share that. Yeah, so this is the Telegram. I just shared it now on the, for those on the YouTube. Also, I want to also encourage, before I end the streaming on YouTube, I want to encourage everyone, both those here and those on YouTube, please go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, turn on the notification bell so that you get alerts when we're having next event. Also like the event, like the video. If you like today's session, just click the like button, the thumbs up button. If you don't like the event or today's event session, yeah, also turn off the click the thumbs up button. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So far, I think we have over 150 subscribers already. So please, if you're not subscribed yet and you're here on Zoom or you are on YouTube, please go to our YouTube channel. Just type Wiki Mentor Africa. You see our, I believe everyone by now knows our logo, just the WMA. Just click on it, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you for joining today's event. See you hopefully next time. Like I said, we'll be communicating on the Telegram platform, so try to be there so you can keep up with the communications and updates. And the Telegram link, okay, somebody is still asking for the Telegram.